Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Happy DJ Expo. We so appreciate you being here this morning. My name is Jeff Short. I am the marketing manager for CHAUVET DJ. We are based in South Florida in the Fort Lauderdale area. DJ Expo is always one of our favorite times to connect with all of you, to learn from you, and to share some of the learning we've gathered from around the world with you. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the dancing. I wish I had an ounce of that energy, especially at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Or flexibility.
You know, I throw my back out just looking at you. So God bless you. We appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. You guys are in for a treat this morning because we have got some amazing information to share with you, some insight, some ideas, some creativity in regard to lighting, but even more specifically and more importantly to all of you, is how you are going to increase your profits and your bookings through that lighting. It's one thing to show you what lights can do, but we need to put that in the context of what does that mean to you? And to us, by the way. We are also working DJs. So we are mobile entertainers. We do gigs each and every week. We feel you. We know what you're up against because we're up against you too. So this, one thing that this is not is a commercial for CHAUVET DJ. All right, we are more interested in sharing with you larger concepts about lighting in general that you can use no matter what brand of lighting you may use. Of course, if you are CHAUVET DJ users, we appreciate you. We want to continue to improve our products for you, make them easier to set up and tear down, make them more powerful, more versatile, more flexible so that you can use them on a larger variety of your gigs. So it's not about please buy this product. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. Jeremy's seminars are always information-packed, and they will get your creative wheels turning. I just want to share with you a couple quick things about CHAUVET DJ and what we're up to here at the show, so you guys know what's going on. And then I want to bring Jeremy up and get right to it. First and foremost, we are booth 517 down on the showroom floor. You can't miss us because it's very bright. So come see us there. We are doing 3 different raffles, by the way, new gear giveaways. We have some fixtures we want to give away throughout the show. We're doing 3 of those. The
People were touching them.
At 4:30, tomorrow at 2:30, tomorrow at 2:30, and then Thursday at 5:30. So there's more information down at the booth about all of that. The way you get your raffle tickets is, first of all, everyone who's here at the end of the seminar will get a free raffle ticket for sure as a thank you for attending. You can also go down to the booth and sign up for a free VIP Rewards membership. It's very easy to do, absolutely free to do. When you do that here at the show, you will get a raffle ticket. Or if you make a purchase with our partners, iDJ Now, which is also in our booth 517, you will also get a raffle ticket for each one of your purchases there. So lots of ways to get a ticket, 3 different chances to win. We appreciate that. You already know about the seminar this morning because you're here. We are also the proud sponsor of the Entertainer of the Year contest, which is happening tomorrow night. So there's information again in the booth about that. Come check out the new products. Come check out what's hot and what's new with CHAUVET DJ at 517. So that's what's going on with us here. We are so happy that you're here. We're happy to be here with you. We appreciate you. Most of you may know Jeremy Brech, some of you don't, but you're about to meet him. He's an esteemed and well-respected member of our entertainment community. He is the owner and operator and president of DJ Jer Events and Lighting in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, but does events everywhere. So he's very, very knowledgeable about large-scale production and events. Of course, he can do them small as well, but these ideas that Jer shares with you will really get your creative wheels turning. We're also really happy that my friend from New Zealand, Matt Watkins, is here. Matt is one of the co-founders and developers of SoundSwitch, the cutting-edge technology that integrates lighting control right through your DJ controller. Audio and lighting combined, sync together effortlessly. And we're going to show you a little bit about SoundSwitch, how that works as well. There is also a SoundSwitch demo down in the booth as well, so you can get some hands-on time. Matt's got a couple workstations set up in the booth, so you can actually get in there and play with it and see what this amazing technology does. It really is revolutionizing how you control lighting. And we're going to share all of that with you. Wireless technology is the way to go. We're using it right here in this room. The two totems in the back of the room are being controlled completely wirelessly, not including power, of course, but the Freedom sticks in each of those totems are actually transmitting and receiving wireless DMX control signals. So, to get into all of that and more, ladies and gentlemen, friends, thank you for being here. Please give a warm welcome to Jeremy Brech.
Thank you, Jeff. That's a very high expectation I now have to live up to. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. And how many of you currently do lighting, some type of lighting, whether it's your dance floor lighting? How about ambient lighting? Okay, how about production style lighting? All right, good, a few of you. So we're gonna kind of go all over the board. This is gonna be 101 all the way up to maybe a little 305, I don't know, 401-ish. We have a lot of great content and I wanna get through this. I wanna make sure I give Matt with SoundSwitch his time because this product that he has put together with CHAUVET DJ, it's phenomenal and I'm excited about it and I wanna make sure that he gets his time. The first thing I like to talk about whenever I start my presentations is why I do what I do. I'm very fortunate. I have 3 beautiful daughters, and I always tell people that I have to do weddings, so someday I can pay for weddings. And this is my wife. She actually came onto our business in March, and she takes care of all of our behind-the-scenes paperwork, all the stuff that I really hate doing. So we're a great team, and again, I'm very fortunate to have 3 little girls. That picture that you saw beside that, I'm going to talk a little bit about what that picture was all about as I get deeper into the presentation. That was actually our trip that we took to the Crystal Cave out in South Dakota. That's where I'm from, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that picture as we go through. So what are some of the keys to my success? I really feel that if you are in some type of lighting design or you want to get into lighting design, I feel that art classes are very important. I was fortunate. I've always been a very creative and artistic person, and now my lighting becomes my paintbrushes. I get to recreate, or I get to create a vision for a person by using lighting. And I took 3.5 years of schooling. I didn't want to take 4 years, so I did 3.5. My last semester I took 28 credits so I could get out of there. And basically, it allowed me to learn the design techniques that people use every day and incorporate that into what I do for my lighting. I was going to work for a marketing company. I was going to make websites, logos, and then I realized there really wasn't a very good business for that because if you didn't have experience, they didn't want you. So I utilized my background and in what I do here. The entertainment experience, who's familiar with the entertainment experience? Bill Herman? Okay, if you get an opportunity, go check out Bill Herman's workshop. It's called The Entertainment Experience. He does it every November up in Minnesota. To me, that was a very turning point in what I do as an entertainer, as well as what I do in my lighting. It made me look at the whole picture, as opposed to this is what a DJ is supposed to do. So definitely check out Bill Herman's workshop, and then also having the right tools. And what I mean by that is you can't use the same lighting fixture to do every single thing across the board. You have to have the right tools to do the right things. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of those things, and then also just have some drive. Really go after what you really want and make things happen. Here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about taking control with lighting. We're going to talk about using lighting in all aspects, in all design, understanding the right lighting options, which I just talked about, and then taking control of your lighting. Okay, there's a difference between taking control with lighting and taking control of your lighting. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to show you how to turn something very simple into something very extraordinary. We're going to show you how to create a return on investment and exceed expectations of your clients. So taking control of your environment. Every single seminar that I do, this is always the first thing I talk about because to me, this is one of the most important things as a lighting person, whether it's for a dance, whether it's for doing full room ambiance, you have to take control of the environment. If there are windows, make sure that you can control the curtains. If there are fluorescent lights, make sure you can shut them off. That's what we did here. Make sure if there are cans that are dimmable, or if there are chandeliers, make sure that you can control those as well. And if they won't allow you to do the control, make sure that you communicate with the banquet staff and say, here's what I need you to do. When they start the first dance, I need you to take the lights from 75% all the way down to 25%. You have to communicate with them if they're not going to give you the opportunity to actually take care of the controls and the switches yourselves. So controlling the environment. Now, we are using in the back what is lighting me up, and it's actually quite dimmed right now. It's down to like 13%. But we're using a Fresnel, and that's what you see here. This is the Eve F50, and yes, they're on back order. I've had them back ordered for the last, I don't know how many months. I have 6 of them coming. If you are not familiar with this fixture, come talk to me down at the booth, and I will tell you how you can make great money by using a fixture similar to this, what you would see at a stage, what you would see at a production. You can use these in a wedding, a mitzvah, whatever it is. It's a great light, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we kind of go through things. So controlling the environment, if you take all the lights down, you still need lighting. And some of the most important places to make that happen is obviously the head table. You want to make sure that your head table is illuminated, because a bride spent thousands of dollars on her dress. The last thing she doesn't want is for her dress not even to be seen while she's sitting up there at the head table, or different key moments throughout the event. So think about the first dance. How do you light up that bride during the first dance without distracting from that first dance? And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So allow the lighting to actually create the experience for your couples and for your event. Accenting is probably one of the most overlooked things when it comes to lighting, because so many people say, well, I've got 50 uplights, so we're going to put 50 uplights in this room. And then they go to a smaller venue. Oh, I got 50 uplights, we're going to put 50 uplights in this room. Uplighting is about accenting. It's about lighting up key points or key areas in a facility to create a vision. Okay? It's about blending into the event. It's about making sure that everything goes together and that you aren't a sore thumb, or your lighting isn't a sore thumb when it comes to the event. And most importantly, like I said, emphasis and different ways to emphasize a facility. We're going to talk about all the different lighting options to make those things happen. The first thing, how many of you currently do uplighting? Okay. How many of you are running into the situation where the facility is now doing uplighting? All right. We're going to talk about how you compete with that and how you make yours more valuable and more appealing to your couples. So we're going to go into that, but first let's talk a little bit about what uplighting is. Like I talked about, it is an accent, but you also want to keep into consideration the brightness and saturation so it's not overpowering. Like I said, this is an accent. It's not supposed to be a look at me. This event is all about my uplighting. So make sure that you control the brightness because it creates saturation. I'm going to show you some pictures of what I'm talking about when it comes to saturation. We're going to talk a little bit about angles. Beam thicknesses, typically an uplight's going to be a tighter beam. And again, there's certain areas where that works really well. And then positioning is very powerful. You will hear that in my closing statements. Positioning to me is one of the most powerful things, and we'll discuss that a little bit more. But as you can see, this is an event that we did. This was actually 2 rooms. You can see the ceiling wash that we have up in here. In the other room, we did a different color tone of blue in the ceiling wash. We did textures on the background, gobo in the back, or logo in the back, and then we did uplighting in this room to kind of create the different atmosphere. So understanding your environment, a lot of that comes down to knowing what your room looks like and what you're having to work with. Okay, what is your canvas that you're working with? And you'll notice if you look on the sides here, we put the slim beams on top of this little tray. And the reason we did that is because the slim beam is a very tight beam. And if we would have put it underneath the tray, it only would have made it up about 2.5 feet. So we actually put it on top, and that was one of those things. I'd never been to this facility before. Obviously, we've always been at the the Taj for I don't know how many years. So going into a new facility, I had to think on the fly, how do I still make this fixture work in this facility? So what we did is we put them on top of the trays and added a nice little feature that way. And you can see that's actually what we did with this picture. When we showed up to this facility, we said, how can we make this fixture work So what we did is that center beam actually goes straight through the sconce on the wall. And it basically, it was one of those things that you just have to kind of work with when you get to the facility. One thing I would always recommend doing is going through the facility ahead of time so you know exactly what lighting is going to work the best and the best way to position that lighting. So here's a couple of factors that you need to keep in mind is what are the wall textures that you're working with? What are the colors that you're working with? Because if you have a white wall and you put a blue uplight on it, it's going to be blue. If you have a tan wall and put a blue uplighting on it, it's not going to be the same shade of blue. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. The ceiling, and you can see I have glass, sheetrock, steel, and wood, because wood can sometimes soak up light, but can also reflect light depending on what type of texture or what type of lacquer is on that wood. Same thing with glass. You know, a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to light up these big windows over here. You're not technically lighting up the windows. You're not lighting up the glass. That's why every single fixture that you see, the optics are glass, because light actually passes through it. What you're doing is you're lighting up all the dirt, dust, all the grime that's on the windows, okay? Floors, make sure that, you know, if you're doing any type of floor texture, make sure that you're not putting a texture on top of a texture where it gets too busy and too distracting. So wall textures, this is just a stone wall. You can see by adding uplighting into some of those accent points, such as a fireplace that might be in the facility, any type of stonework, brickwork, you get some really good textures off of that. So whenever you're doing uplighting or you're doing any type of lighting, try to find something that has some really nice texture. And again, you don't have to put an uplight every 3 feet. You just have to find the right places to actually put your uplights to make it effective. This was actually the first uplighting job I had ever done. And I talk a lot about how a monogram, and it's actually just a really old picture, so it's very not pixelated, it's just very fuzzy. But you'll hear me, we'll talk a little bit about positioning for uplights or lighting that goes along with your gobos or your monograms. You never want to have an uplight cut through a monogram, because basically you're taking away from that monogram itself, from the design of that monogram. And I'll show you some different ways to make sure that you're using your monograms effectively and how you can utilize what you currently have for lighting, whether it's an uplight just angling on the sides, or if it's a wash light, then you can put a wash light up through there, but just make sure it's consistent. So when it comes to angle lighting, the slim beams, like I was talking about there, those slim beams are a really cool effect light, but also acts as a nice effect light and also acts as a nice uplight. So the really cool thing with these is they do have a lot of built-in programs, and you can kind of see some of the different programs. You can speed this up, you can slow it down basically by using your programming. So you can slow it down there. They've got some really, like I said, some really neat things. These work great if you are, you don't want special effect lights going into the dance floor, but yet you still want some cool ambiance. You don't have up lights. These you put behind your DJ table, and then you have this really cool effect going on behind you. So there's some really neat things, like I said, with the slim beams. They got like I said, a lot of, I think there's like 16 different built-in programs in these, and they work great. So if you have questions, actually, if any of you have questions after this presentation, I will be down at the CHAUVET DJ booth, and I'll be answering any questions that you guys have. We have, let's see, we have 100 more slides to go through, plus a demo through SoundSwitch. So we're gonna try and cook through this. But as you can see, I talked about the monogram. We actually did a wash light, and we had that go through the center, and then we added those angle lights or the slim beams to kind of create the accent around that. So I talked about spacing. Spacing can be very important. And the reason I feel that spacing is one of the most overlooked things is because most DJs will grab, or even facilities, they will grab their power cord that came with their uplight, and that's the power cord that they're gonna use. So if it's 5 feet long, their uplight spacing is 5 feet long. If it's 6 feet long, their spacing is 6 feet long. So that's the nice thing about having something such as the Freedom. We're using the Freedom Hex up here. By using the Freedoms, it allows me to really put them wherever I need to, wherever I want to. So if all of a sudden I say, that's not exactly where I want that one to go, I can slide it over. I'm not limited by cables, cords, or anything like that. So take advantage of battery-powered or wireless fixtures and space accordingly. And that really comes down to creating accents in walls. So we talk about the wall textures a little bit. And then I also talked about the wall color that you're working with. Now again, if I put an uplight right here, it's going to look a lot different as that color goes up because this is a darker brown compared to a tan, compared to a blue. So make sure that you know the color of the facility that you're working with, because if a bride says, I want you to match my blush pink, but yet she has blue walls, you're going to have to make the adjustments to make sure that you can create that color for her. Okay, so I talked a little bit about brightness and saturation. How many of you have ever seen a picture or taken a picture and the color or the uplight is just blown out? Like it's almost white when you look at the picture because it's so bright. Okay, that's just because the saturation wasn't really balanced out or you had the fixture way too bright. It was brighter than what it needed to be. So, as you can see, I put, this is a photographer's nightmare. The last thing you want to do is make the photographer mad because there goes any recommendations for the future when it comes to that photographer. So make sure that you respect the photographer, the videographer, and make sure that, excuse me, make sure that you work with them ahead of time and ask them, is this too bright? Is this too dim? We do a lot of that with our spotlighting in the front or in the door during grand entrances. So make sure that you're touching base with them and letting them know this is how bright this is going to be. Is this going to work okay? Same thing with first dances, okay? Make sure that that color tone or that color temperature is going to be exactly what they need. And we'll talk a little bit about temperature as well. So brightness more effectively, this is what I was talking about. Here's some random pictures that I just found on the internet. I apologize if any of these are yours. If they are, it's okay, we're making you better. Just think about that. Okay, so you can see, here's what I was talking about. It's just really bright right here, and that's probably the shade of blue that they were kind of hoping for. Another one, you can see how it's just, it looks like a flame right here because it's so bright. And then same thing, it's just, there's just a lot of brightness which created, and sometimes the photographer can work with that. Sometimes they can make the adjustments within their camera. Just make sure you communicate with them ahead of time so that way they can make the adjustments if they need to. Okay, so wash lighting, I talked about not cutting into a monogram, making sure that there is a good balance of light all the way across that monogram. Wash lighting is a great way to do that. One of my favorite things is by far the wash effects. You can see that's what's actually making the purple haze up in the ceiling. And actually, you know what? We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, so I won't show you exactly all those features yet. But great places to do a wash light is going to be if you're doing any draping, if you have any beadwork. I think I have some samples of that. I'll explain when we get to that. And then also, the little secret when it comes to wash lighting. Okay, how many of you currently own some type of uplight? Okay. So you've already made that investment. What type of investment can you make instead of buying, and sorry, CHAUVET, but instead of buying another fixture like this, CHAUVET actually has a filter, and I think it's like $25 or $30. Go talk to IDJ now. There's a little filter in their Pro line that actually can set on top of your par can or your uplight and will actually spread the light 60 degrees. It's a 60 by 1 filter, okay? So if you're looking for the little filter, it's called a 60 by 1, and it will take a regular uplight, like you see the Freedom Par there. It'll take that uplight and it'll spread the beam 60 degrees. So it gives you a nice wash light. Am I allowed to come back after that, Jeff? No. Shoot, sorry. Okay, so I talked a lot about the wash effects, or I will talk a lot about the wash effects. So a couple things. This is an event we did. Are you guys familiar with Blue Bunny Ice Cream? Okay, so the founder and the owner of Blue Bunny Ice Cream, they had their 40th vow renewal, and this was the ceremony. And I'm going to show you some before and afters. But what I want to show here is we actually used the wash effects to create that nice warm white up into the ceiling area, basically creating the overall ambiance of that room, of that, well, what looks to be a tent. But when you see what it actually is, you'll see how we kind of transformed everything. But having the nice warm color, using the wash effects, creates a nice warm, nice flow of even color through the entire event. This here, I always recommend utilizing what's in the facility, okay? So this was inside a building, and what we did is we actually put wash effects on the ground. Well, I shouldn't say it was on the ground, it was on a bed about 3 feet high, and then they had landscaping inside of that. So what we did is we actually laid the wash effects in different colors throughout this landscaping area. We shot it up the trees, so here you can see some like a darker purple, a lighter purple, but when it actually goes up, you get this really cool contrast up in the ceiling because the light is actually hitting the tree in different areas and it's casting the light separately or in different areas up onto the ceiling. So you get some really cool effects just by utilizing what might currently already be there. Think about that if you have a facility, you know, they always have like those little plants or trees sometimes, okay? Maybe set something back behind that tree, shoot it into the ceiling, create a beautiful texture up in your ceiling. So the monogram that we talked about, okay, they almost had it. They have a wash light here, but they don't have anything here. So you kind of see the unbalance that I'm talking about, how it doesn't go all the way through, or maybe they should have just moved this to the outside and not even mess with the monogram. So again, to me, it's important to make sure that your lighting is working together and they're not creating a distraction. So positioning, giving your light a purpose, making it go through this sconce as opposed to having it bleed over the top and then it just didn't look uniform or it didn't look like it actually fit in there. This here is basically just, actually we used 4 moving heads. This was Mobile Beat, 3 years ago. And we just created these really cool moving texture uplights that just positioning them correctly, spacing and also angles, it allowed us to really create a really cool background for that show. Okay, so again, I'm gonna go through and just talk a little bit about where some of the positioning or where some of the things could have been a little bit different. So you'll notice, again, very uniform, but the thing that's kind of distracting is this one that hits right here, okay? So what should have probably happened was maybe just shifting it over about 2 feet both ways, or for the whole entire setup, and then the uplights would have actually framed in that picture, making it a little bit more effective. So again, just little simple things, moving uplights, not being constrained to power cords or DMX cables can really make a huge difference. There we go. So ceiling wash. I talked about the purple that's in the ceiling. The wash effects to me is one of the greatest fixtures out there. It is by far given us our best return on investment. It's a very affordable fixture and it was actually designed to be a wash onto a dance floor. And it was supposed to be this special effect light. That's why they call it the wash effects, because it was supposed to be an effects light. But I looked at this light and I said, how can I utilize this to actually work as a production or as a light that I would use in some of my design setups. So what we do is we actually will put them on totems. We'll put them on a single stick part of our totem. And again, I can tell you more about that. If you have questions, write these questions down. I'll answer them for you at the booth. But the wash effects creates a beautiful ambiance into the ceiling. So the other cool thing is this also has built-in programs. And so here is some of the wash effects. Again, this is just using the built-in programs that it has. So if you want to use this as a special effect light, you don't have to shoot it into your crowd and blind them. You can just shoot it over the top of them. Some of the different effects. And then just an overall color snap. And all that can be sped up, slowed down, and really create an overall ambiance. So if I wanted to make more of a turquoise, then I can just color mix. I can take my greens down, I can make it more blue. And basically this is all done, this is how I use Show Express. And we'll talk about controllability here after a bit. But that is the Wash Effects, like I said, one of the most effective fixtures. If you don't currently have them, that's something I would definitely put on your list of must-haves. Some other options, you got the trios. You can see the trios down there. I'll go over the trios here in a little bit, or after a bit. And I always recommend make sure that your lighting is contrasting and not distracting. And what I mean by that is make sure that your color palette actually goes together. So here we have red and we have purple. Well, there's hints of red to make purple. So what we did is we made sure that the colors were contrasting or they worked together as opposed to creating a distraction. So keep that in mind when you are working with your color palettes. If they say, you know, I want this color, and this color, okay? Like when we do our digital uplighting or our wireless uplighting, and someone has like, my colors are gold and like mint green. I'm not gonna go gold, mint green, it's just not gonna look good. So what I'll do is I'll do the whole room in gold during cocktails, and then once dinner starts, I'll switch everything to a mint green. So I'm still utilizing the wireless features before the dance even starts, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Okay, so gobos and monograms. How many of you are currently doing gobos or monograms? Monograms, good, okay. There's a couple things to keep in mind, and we're gonna show you some areas or some things to be thinking about when it comes to positioning of monograms and also how to do them effectively. So the one thing I love is the Easy Gobo. It's actually a battery-powered little gobo projector. You can actually use transparencies, so you can print them off on your printer. I would recommend getting a high-def printer of some sort. Make sure you get a good quality, a really high DPI. But the EVE 100 and the EVE 50, to me, are one of the most important fixtures when it comes to doing monograms or doing some type of logo work. And the reason I say that is because you can actually, let's see, do I talk about Cool Ink here? No, I'll tell you a little bit more about Cool Ink as we get deeper. But these fixtures, this is the EVE 50. There's the white one over there. There's the black one over there. And yes, you can use them as monograms, but they also work great for textures, patterns, which we'll talk about, framing. You can see right here, people always ask, can I see the difference between an EVE 50 and an EVE 100? This is the EVE 100. This is the EVE 50 down here. And you can see there's not that big of a difference. And to me, I actually prefer the EVE 50 over the EVE 100. And the reason I say that is because I love the fact that it comes in white. We actually have 6 of the EVE 100s. We have 9 of the EVE 50s in white, and we have 1 in black. And I'm going to show you that event again for the Blue Bunny people. I'll show you that event again and why, to me, white was important. But image projection is probably one of the biggest things that has really separated us, because we look at it as a design. We can design with this fixture as opposed to just shooting a monogram. So it does have a lot of flexibility in what you can do with a fixture like this. So monograms, talked about this a little bit. You can see how the wash kind of complements the monogram there. Now, actually, this was a Source 4. Okay, everybody's familiar with Source 4? Source 4 Juniors? All right, how many of you have Source 4 Juniors? How many of you hate the fact that there's always this overglow where it's hazy on this side and not on this side? It's the most annoying thing. I love the fact that the EVE 50s and the EVE 100s are crisp all the way through. So keep that in mind. This here is an EVE 50. You can see it's just clean all the way through. Here you have some overglow. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well, so you see exactly what I'm talking about. So here is that event from the back. What we did is we had 3-meter totems that we put in the back. We had spandex covering it all up. Now this is a client, very particular. They really want to make sure that things are done right. And our job is to blend in and to make everything look clean, okay? So we used all LED fixtures. We used the EVE 100s, we used the EVE 50s in the back. We used wash effects. And what I want you to know, or what I want you to see with the wash effects, you see how the only black, actually the O clamp, but where the fan is at, actually created custom stickers that went on my wash effects to make them white. So the stickers actually cover it up and blend in with the actual setup itself. We had custom, I actually had to sew them. My wife, she kind of got frustrated and she said, I'm done sewing. So good thing I paid attention in home ec. But we actually created white socks to go over our single poles to cover up any aluminum and made them white as well. And here's the E50s. You know how I said the E100s only come in black? Since they're LED, we actually created a white sock to go over them. So there's a white sock that goes over the front, a white sock that goes over the back. I just used white gaff tape where the mounting bracket was at, and basically turned pretty much most of the fixture, except for the framing blades, into white so that way it blended as well. And again, that's just because we knew that our client was particular. We didn't want our event or our part of this event to stick out, and so we needed to blend in. Again, I talked about blending in as opposed to being this sore thumb. So why do I love these LED fixtures? Because you can use Cool Ink gobos. How many of you are familiar with Cool Ink? Okay, a couple of you. You guys are gonna love this. So Cool Ink gobos, you can actually get, I think they're like $65, but you can do a full color Cool Ink gobo for $65. How many of you know how much a glass full color gobo costs? Okay, it's around 500 bucks. All right, so you wanna look at a return on investment. The return on investment on something like that, if the client has the expectation that, well, I have to get this in full color, which means I have to pay for glass, which is gonna cost you about 600 bucks, they're thinking, okay, do it. Well, great. So you now charge them $600, your cost is now $65. Think about that return on investment. That's pretty good, right? So keep that in mind. And at first, when I contacted Roscoe, Roscoe does Cool Ink, Apollo does, I don't remember what it's called. Apollo does it as well. But when I contacted Roscoe, I said, I need a Cool Ink for an Eve 100. They're like, it won't work. I said, well, just send it to me. I want to try it. I did a shop time video. How many of you guys are familiar with shop time? Okay, handful of you. There are free videos. If you go onto YouTube, go to DJ Jer Shop Time, search for DJ Jer Shop Time. They're free videos. They're not monetary. You just take advantage of them. And I basically created these videos to help people with situations like this, to think about things beyond what we usually think about. And every event that you see, every picture that I show, there's typically a shop time video on how we did it and why we did it that way. Okay, so take advantage. It's free education. YouTube, DJ Jer Shop Time. Go subscribe. I guarantee there's like 300 some videos out there. Take advantage of them. I put them out there for my DJ family. But full color, again, with the Cool Ink, to me, is a very effective way to do gobos or do monograms. And I'll show a couple examples of those as well. One of the things that we like to do is, again, think beyond just the monogram or just the script or the name that's going on the back wall. These are actually welcomes. They're welcome mats. So this is as the clients are walking in, and then this is on the outside of a building as people are walking up to the building. So again, kind of creating a welcome mat can be a really cool feature. Sorry, Lori. Did you get it? Okay. And then scripts. I talked about the Cool Ink. The Cool Ink scripts allow me to get a very detailed image on a glass, or it's actually like a really hard plastic. It allows me to get that image just nice and clean. I don't have any bridging. Bridging is when you have a steel gobo and you have to hold the centerpiece of the A in there. There's a little piece of metal that actually holds that in there. So a Cool Ink basically eliminates that as well. And since I had to shoot this in an Eve 50 across the room, I had to resize the actual image on the gobo. So when you order a gobo, they'll say that, okay, here's your image size that you're working with, here's how big the script is gonna be. It's gonna go all the way across. Well, what we had to do is we had to shrink it down, and it was actually about a 1/4 inch wide by like an 1/8 inch tall. And that's how we made that, but you can still see how clean the scripting looks. This one here is a eat, drink, and be married. And then this one here is as guests were leaving the event, it actually said, "Thank you for celebrating with us on our wedding day." So it's basically an exit mat as people are leaving the event, because by the time they're leaving, it's dark out. Now your light makes a little bit more sense, or it works a little bit better. Okay, so design and placement. Where would you put a monogram? This is over a head table. This is actually this was a scroll piece that they had on all of their invitations, all of their RSVPs. So they wanted to incorporate that somehow. And anytime people are doing a monogram and they're like, "Yeah, we want to do a monogram for our wedding," the first question you should be asking is, "Can I see your program?" or "Can I see your invitation?" Because you want to make everything flow well. From the time they send out the RSVP, it should look exactly the same as the invitation. It should look exactly the same as the program, and it should look exactly the same as their head table, okay? So ask them for that program so you can copy exactly what that looks like, and you can actually project that over their head table. So this is when they walked in. You would see on the other side of the room their monogram. And then corporate branding is also very important to be thinking about. This is American Harvest organic vodka. And we had the logo as people walked in on the floor. And then here, we actually had them projected on some scrims that we made custom for the openings of the windows. But then you can kind of see one here. What we did is we actually created a scanning logo. And that logo would actually basically go across the room. And think about how much more eye-catching movement is compared to not movement or no movement. So this logo, as this is scanning around the room, it's catching people's attention because they're seeing it over here, and then they're seeing it go across here. So now they're branding by having movement added to a gobo. You charge more for that, because when you charge more for that, it's more valuable to the client because, again, it's more eye-catching than something that's just static. Here's some other corporate logos that we did. This is for Pioneer. We shot the logo. Actually, you'll have to watch the shot time video on that. They left me absolutely no space to actually shoot this logo, but this is a cool ink, full color, reds, greens. You really can't see. I took this with my phone, but we actually had to go back behind the stage, move the back curtain, open it up, set the ellipsoidal or the Eve 100 back behind the curtain and shoot through the opening of the curtain to hit this piece of fabric that's between the trussing. So, like I said, go check the shop time video up on that. That was an interesting project. And then also, just make sure that it's big and bold and that, again, that corporate client feels like it had a purpose and that it has value. So I talked about scanning logos a little bit. This was an event we actually did the week or Thursday before I came here. Sanford Health. This is just two logos that were put into. They're actually the old Q-Spot 250s, and we had those scanning across the tent. So the sponsor would pay our client a certain amount of money, and we could charge more for that than we could this because, again, we're giving it more value by having it moving around the tent as opposed to just static. So here was their golf shootout. This is using the Eve 100, shooting onto the grass where the shootout was at. This tent was actually on a stage that was 10 feet in the air, and then the tent was on top of that. So it was kind of the viewing tent. That's why we could make this logo work the way we did. So alternative uses for gobo projectors, I talked about framing, and that's what we did with the Eve 100, the Eve 50s on the back. We actually framed this in. So you can frame in a cake, but really what I would recommend, I'm gonna point out a couple things that I would say is wrong in this picture, okay? This is back in 2012, 5 years ago, 4 years ago? I don't know how many years, 5 years ago. I came a long way since then, but a couple things that I want to point out is I have two different color temperatures here, okay? Stick with one color temperature. If you're gonna go with warm, go with warm. If you're gonna go with cool, go with cool. The other thing that I should have done, I should have made this not a hard edge. It should be a soft edge. And the way to do that is actually just to unfocus the fixture just a little bit and it'll create a nice soft edge. And what was the third thing? spelled June right. No, I'm just kidding, that's not wrong. There was something else, I can't remember exactly what it was, but again, some of those little techniques can really make a big difference just by looking at color temperatures and framing and all of that. And then also just adding patterns. We're gonna talk a lot about textures and patterns because I feel that's where a lot of the lighting design is going, is in those textures and patterns. I think that's where a lot of us can make money. Actually, I know we can because I can do it, and I know you guys can do it as well. Again, you just have to have the right tools to do it. And let's talk, I think we talk about that, yeah. So textures and patterns. This is a picture of a tent that I have a picture of a tent that we did the moon in. But this was actually a picture that we staged. We did the moon, and then we actually had our Nimbus do a nice little cloud dance for them. So they were dancing on the clouds with the moon and, you know, really setting the mood. So that was that just simple gobos like that. I think I don't even know how much they are. I think they're like $35, or if they're $40, trust me, we've had a really good return on investment on those. Creating a theme. So this was a American Cancer event we did, and this was the Yellow Brick Road for Oz. That was their theme for their event. So we created a Yellow Brick Road by getting a gobo that looked like a brick, or that looked like bricks, and then we just put a yellow color filter on it to make it gold, to make it yellow, making the Yellow Brick Road. This is actually the plaza in New York. Adding the texture into the ceiling can be very effective. We have a lot of events this year that we're doing a textured ceiling. We also have a textured floor. So it's almost like a stepping stone as people are walking into the reception. And the important thing to be thinking about on this is if guests are walking this way, don't have your fixture back here, have your fixture up here. Because that way, the light is shining in front of them as opposed to behind them. Because if it's behind them, all they're gonna see is their shadows as they're walking across, okay? So make sure that your positioning for your pattern or your texture is in a good place. This is one of our clients. This is his house. And he wanted to do this Suicide Squad party and basically said, just do what you gotta do. And so using the whole, the ha 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 that you would see in like a lot of the Suicide Squad posters and things like that. We recreated that. We have a bat signal, and again, I custom made this where it was the bat signal, and then it had, it looked like it had gotten blown out, or the glass had gotten shot. So it had bullet holes around that, and then we had a love pudding, and basically we used the ellipsoidals to create textures on the outside of the building. Again, really making this a beautiful ambiance or a beautiful theme as people walked up to the facility. So you can see we have our freedom sticks. We had some trussing just kind of randomly. We had our geysers, and they have these little motion detectors on the geysers. Have you guys seen these? There's a little motion detector. Works great for if you're doing haunted houses, if you're doing some element of surprise. You put the little sensor, and it's wireless. You put the little sensor somewhere, and then as soon as people are walking by, the geyser will blast. So we used some of those, and we just used, we actually have the Colorados from a couple years back. We actually created the nice purple all the way across. Those are an outdoor fixture, IP65, water, rain rated. I wouldn't recommend doing a wash effects outside because they're not technically made for outdoors. Could you do it? Yes. Okay, so when people think about themes, you have to think about that there's different types of themes. There's different styles of themes, and what I mean by that is there's the original Alice in Wonderland, and you can see we did a Harlequin pattern. There's about 6, you can kind of see it up here. That's the nice thing about this being white is it actually blends in with the ceiling. We have 6 E50s, 3 on that side, 3 on the other side. Basically, we made the Harlequin pattern, and we also did the keyholes, and then we have the throwback Alice in Wonderland textures and gobos that we used. And again, these were all custom. They're they're very cost effective. When you can charge a client, $225 per piece, and you're your cost is roughly $60 some. It's a really good return on investment for us. So this is the new Alice in Wonderland. And this was actually, this was the niece of Mr. Blue Bunny. But her wedding was like 6 years ago or 5 years ago. And they wanted to do this whole Alice in Wonderland wedding. So we did the tree patterns. And I mean, this was over the top. This was by far our biggest wedding or production we'd ever done. But we had Cheshire the cat. He was actually in a mover, and he would appear, he would disappear, he would float across the room, basically like he would in the movie. And we made that, it would just show up on people's tables and things like that. And then this here, this is actually an outdoor umbrella. And we did some fabrics underneath to create huge mushrooms. And then we used the ellipsoidal to create the texture to make it look like a mushroom. So there was a lot of design technique that kind of went into that. This next event is one of my favorite clients because they're not afraid to say, no, that's too much. So this was the safari jungle that we created this last fall. And the doctor who owns the castle, this is his corporate event that he does. They're an oral surgeon company in Sioux Falls, and they like to throw this big party, this themed party every year. And the fun thing about this was when I first started working with them, they contacted me and they said, we want to do a masquerade ball. Here's what we need you to do. Like, okay, sounds good. So we pin spotted, we did up lights. I said, you know what, why don't we add some chandeliers to really match the theme? So you have to do your homework when you're working on creating a theme. So I watched Phantom of the Opera like 6 times to kind of create that masquerade that they were looking for. And if you watch that, you'll notice there's a lot of reds, there's a lot of golds, there's a lot of very rustic, feel and deep purples to kind of create that masquerade feel. So for their event, we had to match that feel. And I said, you know what, let's bring in some chandeliers. So we covered up some chandeliers. They're the chandeliers that were in there because they look like they're from the 90s. We covered them up, and then we brought in some other chandeliers, and that's how we created the lighting to match the feel or the theme. So they were blown away by that. They were like, wow, this really turned out great. This was the best gala we'd ever had. And then they said, okay, so we want to book you for next year. I'm like, great, that sounds fantastic. So originally they came in with like a $4,000 budget. By the time we were done with that, it was right around $6,000. But then the second year, they said, okay, so here's our theme. We want to do a haunted house. Here's what we want you to do. And then what other ideas do you have? I'm like, okay. So we started putting some things together, and I think I've got some pictures. I do, yeah. I'll show you some pictures from that event. But basically, they went from, here's what we want you to do, and now it's, here's our theme, what do we do? So they basically turned their whole demeanor in saying, here's what we expect from you, but now it's, what do you need from us to make this happen? I just tell them cash, and it works. But for this event, we actually created this huge tree in the middle. It's a 20-foot tree. We created this huge airplane. We put a little smoke machine inside. The propeller would actually spin, and the smoke machine would just put out like puffs of smoke as if the plane crashed into the tree. We hung all of this. This is actually backer rod. Are you guys familiar with backer rod? Like tuck pointing for brick buildings. It's just a bunch of backer rod. We had a scissor lift. I made my guys go to work. There's thousands of feet of backer rod hanging from there. But then the texture on the outside, which is the tree texture, a whole different style of tree texture, kind of created the overall feel of being in a jungle. But it didn't stop there because we had all this blank space here. So here we actually video mapped. You can't see it, but we video mapped safari sunset. We had some virtual animals, like you would see a cheetah just randomly pop up, kind of looking around, doing his thing. We did a recent one where we had a virtual elephant, to kind of fit in with the feel. And then we pin spotted everything. Now, another thing that we thought about was, okay, when you're in a jungle, you're in a deep jungle, you always see those pictures where like a little bit of the light's coming through the trees. So that's what we wanted to create with using just the pin spots and then also the ellipsoidals. We put textures in there to make it look like it was coming through the trees from the lighting. And as the sun was setting, here's a side view. As the sun was setting, the sunset would get a little bit orange, more deep red, and all the uplighting was programmed to change along with that. So as it got deeper, the uplighting would get deeper as well. So going back to how do you compete with the facility, take control of your lighting. And we'll talk a little bit more about that after a bit here. So this next picture is same floor, different patterns. Again, this is a winter theme. This is we're just doing, a very elegant feel. It's a scroll pattern. I think this is like scroll frill or something like that. Probably one of our most popular patterns. It's a Roscoe pattern, I believe. Like I said, we have a lot of success with that pattern. If you're doing a winter theme, winter themes are not red and green. They're more ice blues, they're dark blues, and just any type of snow texture as well. Which, again, keep an eye on shop time. We have a really cool wedding coming up at the beginning of December that it's gonna be pretty amazing. I don't want you guys to miss it. Okay, so next part is textures inside of tents. And we were actually very fortunate to be a part of this wedding. This was actually a tent wedding that we did that was selected as one of the top 3 tent weddings in 2012 in Bridal Planner magazine. That's the final results. Again, we actually used the 60x1 filters, which they were happy to buy for me at $25 a pop. So basically I said, okay, well I need 60 of them. So they basically paid 60 times, the 25 or 29, whatever it is. But they understood why that was important to create the effect that they wanted for their wedding. And then the outside of the tent, we actually illuminated the outside. We did their monogram over the top as people were walking in. We actually hung pin spots in the tree to hit these centerpieces as guests were walking in as well. So again, those little details can really make a huge difference. Where are we at for time, Jeff?
Time for a little sound switch action.
Yeah?
Yes.
Give me a little bit?
See what you gotta do.
All right. Okay, so you guys remember this event? No? It's this event. So that was the before and after. We basically turned a Expo building, I'll go back there for you, turned an Expo building, all the fabric, made a tent, and then here we did the Eve 100s to create this pattern, this swirl pattern in the back. And one thing I want to point out here is this is another cooling gobo, but we designed the cross. You can see this right here. You see how there's like an open line right there in the middle? There's an open line going vertical as well. The reason we did this is because we talk with whoever you're working with. We talked with the people who were hanging this chandelier, and we asked them, or they said it was going to be right in the dead center of when people walked in. So what we did is we designed the gobo to make sure that cable would actually go right in the middle of that cross. So you could, besides this piece right here, that cable basically disappeared. And it just blended in well. And those little details, again, make such a huge difference. So we had the Eve 100s shooting across, making this huge pattern. There's huge texture in the back. And then we had the Eve 50s here and the Eve 50 up top to create the overall feel of this ceremony. So a couple areas where monograms could have been done better, and I want to make sure, again, that I can get Matt up here, so I'm going to fly through this. I just maybe would have resized this. You can see the and is actually, and it's okay, I know whose this is. He said it was cool, and he knows better now. But the and sign lands right in the sconce, and also you can see where all of the tray and the ceiling kind of creates some distraction in the M. Another one, what could have been done different here? Oh, I didn't hear any of that. Placement. The placement's not bad, but what he could have done was said, okay, bride and groom, when you do your first dance, I want you to do it here and not here. So they could have got a really cool picture with the monogram if he would have just told his bride and groom just to move up just a little bit, and they would have been just fine. Okay, so this was a before. And this was the after, maybe filling in some lighting there, but doing a monogram right there, taking advantage of that big blank space. I think really could have added to that. This here, put up some pipe and drape and take away that accordion wall that's there. Adding some pipe and drape could have been effective. If you are going to do pipe and drape, again, there's a shop time video on this. Don't have it so it's wavy, because it's great if you're looking straight on, but if you're to the right, you're only getting half of what you see in that projection. If you're on the other side, you're only seeing the other half of the surface. Okay, so make sure that is this yours? Oh, okay, sorry. So make sure that your fabric is maybe tight, or maybe scrunch it together really tight, so that way it gives you a better and clean surface. I talked about the overglow. This is what I was talking about. You can see how it's kind of hazy right here. The E100s and E50s, I have no problems with that anymore. When I was using the Source 4s, I don't know if it was the optics or what, but you'd always get that haze. So they've eliminated that. You can see the haze right there as well. Underneath the date, you can see how that kind of creates a little overglow. And then same thing, just using some wash, and then maybe doing some pipe and drape to cover up these doors that are in the background as well. Just little things like that can make a huge difference. And then same thing, we have an uplight going through the M. We don't have anything going through the T, or there's really no balance in uplighting that's going through there. Same thing with this next one. It's kind of heavy on the left. I think I already showed this one. Maybe just add one more wash light to the right, and probably would have been just fine. So the before in this one, okay, I think they placed it well. Again, maybe just doing a wash along with that would have made it cleaner. So I talked about the corporate event where they said, here's your budget this year, here's your budget next year. This was the Halloween event. This was the follow-up after the masquerade. And if you aren't doing any UV, this is a perfect example of why you probably should get into UV. So what we did is, for pin spotting, we pin spotted all the centerpieces, but then we also put an easy par up in the ceiling, and we illuminated the entire table green. I actually had custom ceiling tiles. We cut them, and then we put the easy par up on top of that ceiling tile, took out their ceiling tile. We created the cast of light down onto the table, and then we pin spotted the centerpieces because they put all this money into centerpieces. The last thing you want to do is light them green and take away from what the florist actually put into it for the colors and such. But here, what we did is we actually got we got clear plastic. We hung it up all over the building, and then we got green black light paint, and we smeared it all over the walls. Okay? So basically, this plastic was so thin that it looked like the walls were actually painted. The owner of the facility comes in, he's like, what happened? And he was starting to freak out, and then we just had to show him, it's just plastic, it's okay. And he was cool with it. But again, this was a really cool event because it allowed us to kind of go to that next step or step outside of the box of what they were going to expect. And then we also had atmosphere effects. Are you guys familiar with those? Those are really cool. If you're not familiar with atmosphere, check those out. They have some really cool like ghost figures and things like that. So we would have ghosts actually like walking across the walls. It was pretty simple. It was pretty cool. But again, the easy pins, from what I understand, they're done. Do you still have some here at the show? Okay, let's go through this. We're going to pass right through this then. But the pin spotting to me is very effective. You can light up centerpieces. Here I want to show you, this is a centerpiece lit up. This is a centerpiece not lit up. You can see how much of a difference that makes. And this here is the floral, a little bit better picture. You can see the floral here now. It's all illuminated. And then the event that we did for the Blue Bunny, we actually lit up all these in the front, all these up here, and then this is their reception. So that was a ceremony. This was the reception, and we lit up all their centerpieces there. Really made them pop. All right, so we're gonna go through this really quick. Pin spotting a little bit more effective. You can see there's some good pin spotting here, except we have some shadows. Same thing here. They pin spotted this part. They didn't spot this part, which to me is probably the most important part of the dress for that. And then they also have pin spotting here, a little bit of shadowing there. So either you reposition, you get more of a top view, or just use 2 pin spots. So again, if they would have got that, they really would have been able to fill that, that centerpiece a little bit better with the pin spotting. Okay, same thing, just a couple shadows. And then this is the cake from that wedding, from the Blue Bunny wedding. And this was his niece's. So a little battle between the cakes. But here is it's actually a replica of Prince William's cake from their wedding. I think it was his wedding. And then this one we actually used a. Is that me? Oh, okay. So for this one, we actually used a rotating glass gobo, and when we actually made it rotate, there's butterflies on here, and as that glass gobo was rotating, it actually made it look like the butterflies were they had a little bit of a movement. So it was a really cool effect that we could get out of the cake spot. Okay, again, I'm gonna fly through this, kind of missed one side of the cake, missed one side of the cake. For that wedding, we used 5 pin spots to actually hit that, to fill that cake. Here, they did a good job here, but they kind of left these areas undone. So maybe just adding a couple pin spots to that could have really been effective and made it a little better. So I talked about color temperatures. Here you can see, here's the difference. Here's cool, here's warm. Can you guys see that? I don't know if it shows up on the projector as well as it should, but a cool white and a warm white, when to use cool white and when to use warm white, come talk to me down at the booth. I'll be happy to explain that for you. Okay, so let's talk about cool white and warm white, I guess. All right, so cool white, using more of like these lilacs or the lighter colors, a light blue or something like that, I would use more of a cool white. When you have more of this style, more candlelight, I would recommend doing a warm white. Something like this, again, I would definitely recommend doing a warm white just because you have a lot of golds, you have a lot of bold colors, or elegant bold colors, I should say. And then same thing here, you see a lot of blues, and blues and purples. You can do a cool here with this style. I would recommend doing more of a cool. Okay, and then this one I would recommend doing more of a warm because you have a lot of those golds. Same thing here, I think you could have gone either way because you have some silvers, you have some light pinks. You could do more of a cool white or a warm white, but then also look at your flowers because your flowers are more of a warm tone. I would probably recommend doing more of a warm than I would a cool. Same thing here. Obviously, I would recommend doing a warm because it's going to blend in with the amber that's being used and just kind of create the overall feel. Here, I would recommend doing a cool because you have the cool blues and you have these very vibrant colors when it comes to the floral. Okay, tent lighting, I'm almost there, hang in there. Tent lighting, so doing this a little bit more effective, think about all of this blank space up here. Okay, how many of you do tents? How many do tent weddings? Okay, so all this blank space is your blank canvas. Most of the time, in our areas, those side walls will eventually come off. So all of the uplighting that's happening on the walls is basically going to be gone. It's gonna disappear. You're gonna lose the whole purpose of it. So this is actually our first big tent wedding we ever did. This was the tent wedding that I was talking about with the moon. We actually had dual layered gobos, or gobo wheels to create the moving stars up in the ceiling. Here is an outside of a tent, kind of creating a contrast between the purple and the green. And then this was actually like those water effect. So we got a really cool texture out of that to kind of create the outside of the ambiance on the tent. So don't kill your dance floor with lighting. We're coming around the corner, here it is. Okay, so during a first dance, make sure you control your lighting. Make sure you control what's going on, okay? One of the most overlooked things I feel is that, DJs have lights and they have lasers and they like to use them, but it's not always the most effective thing. So make sure that, I need to make sure I'm not going through my HDMI here. Give me 1 second, guys. Yep, I'm good, okay. Make sure that you have full control of your lighting and make sure that you're using it correctly. So, for instance, during a first dance, you don't need to tell them where the DJ's at. They know where the DJ's at. Okay? And maybe their name is DJ, I don't know. But, think about you blending in and fitting in with the event. Marquee lights are cool, but not for the DJ to tell them that I'm the DJ. Okay? Looks like a dance with her dad. See all these special effect dots going on? How many photographers are like, oh my gosh, please don't use those? Okay? Because they've worked with DJs who use those during the first dance. And it just takes away from the whole ambiance of what this dance could have been. Lasers. Why wouldn't you use lasers during the first dance? Again, you have all these special effect dots. This is their first dance as husband and wife. And here he has RGB butt. Okay, another perfect example. I don't know why you would use club lasers during a father-daughter dance or whatever this dance is, but this was obviously what they wanted. And then you can see like these look like swarms. They have those going on. So you had asked me, what would you recommend if you just want to get into some special effects? The swarm wash effects to me is probably one of the coolest lights because you can do a nice wash on the dance floor, but it also gives you the opportunity to do some special effects as well. And the tri-green lasers create a really cool effect. So I hope my volume works. It should, but. The Blue Bunny people spent thousands upon thousands. They spent $175,000 just to rent out every single hotel room for all their guests. Okay? So they weren't afraid to spend money on this event. But they hired a DJ because it was a friend of theirs. You know how that goes. They hired a DJ as a friend to do their wedding. So what I'm going to do, and there's a shop time video on this. It shows you like why you should control your lighting, why it's important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you their dance. Yes, I recorded it. I'm going to show you their dance. I'm going to play it for you. I'm going to let you guess if it's a slow song or if it's a fast song. Okay? This is what happens when you don't have control of your lighting and you put everything in sound active mode. Get away from sound active mode. All right, so here is the video. Okay, what would you guess? Fast or slow song? Frank Sinatra, Just the Way You Look Tonight. Wouldn't that be the perfect light show for that? Okay? Same light show, fast or slow. Party in the USA. So what was the difference? The song, that was the only thing that was different. How about this one? Okay, great light show going on. All right, you can see the little girls jumping around. It's a fast song. Cotton Eye Joe. And let me tell you, the mixing on Winamp, he was awesome. Yeah. Okay, same light show. All right, so we just heard Cotton Eye Joe. So what's the difference between that song and this song? It was their first dance. So you see, when you don't control the lighting, how it affects a moment like that. Look how many people are engaged in this moment right now. Absolutely nobody. Nobody was watching what was going on. So please take control of your lighting. Okay, so we talked about how do you win the battle between your facilities who are now doing in-house lighting. The biggest thing is just taking control of your lighting. Matt just showed you a great way to do so. There is just using freedoms in general and sending signal to them. I gotta figure out what I did with my pointer. Sending signal to them and actually making them more of a special effect as opposed to just an uplight. That's going to make all the difference. So if you can start controlling your fixtures, you're going to do a lot better. You're going to be able to sell what you do over your facilities. And also don't sell yourself short. People always like to say, well, they're normally like $35, but I'll do them for like $5. Okay, you're selling yourself short. You're not doing what you should be in making the money. So again, controlling the lighting, going with the beat or going with the music. I need my music. All right, let's try this. Okay, so this is just putting motion to your, maybe not. This is putting motion to your up lighting. Let's see if I can play this. I I don't think it's gonna let me. But anyways, allowing the lighting to basically chase around the room. And what I mean by that is when I use Show Express, I can actually create the effect of motion by using the freedoms. So here is a room fade, okay? And then just by doing a room wave, again, this is something that the facilities cannot do unless they actually have an LD there to run their lighting. So just creating a rainbow effect. We actually do a lot of like a warm white and amber, having that chase around the room. So the whole room might be amber, but then you'll see little splashes of a warm white kind of chasing around the room. There's a lot of cool things that you can do with that. So sneak peek, I'm gonna go over this quick. The new gear that they've got coming out, make sure you check out at the booth. They have the Vivid 4, which is an LED wall. You'll be able to see that. The Intimidator 375, which is the ones on the sides. And then also the Beam 355, that is a 100-watt LED. And then there's this thing called Sound Switch. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's pretty sweet. You'll have to check that out. And like I said, how do you make money? You have to own your market. You have to be better than everybody else. The best way to do that is to have the right tools. Don't do the same thing. Do something better. Be better than your competition. And then my biggest thing is do not badmouth your competition, because that bride could go back to this person and say, here's what they said about you. And that's not even the worst part. It's the fact that if you can't sell yourself, don't undersell somebody else. So sell yourself before you try and badmouth your competition. And then just, again, be better than your competition. There's a video that I usually have in here, but since we're short on time, I'm gonna pass forward through this. The F-150 effect. I mean, Ford basically just dominated this and that and new innovations and things like that. And that's what you need to do with your lighting. So how do you make money? Everybody get your phones out. We're gonna kick through this really fast. We're gonna talk about how you make uplighting money, or how you make money on uplighting, how you make money on wash lighting, what you should be charging, how much it's gonna cost you, and your return on investment. You ready? All right, here we go. First slide, uplighting, wash lighting, ceiling washes, gobo patterns or gobo projections. Okay, so that is, again, this is what it might cost you $300 to $600. But if you sell it for $500 for a full colored cooling gobo for $500, your return on investment is going to be 1 to 3 events. And I know some of you are saying, well, I can't do that in my market. If you really want to have that discussion, come talk to me down in the booth. I live in Sioux Falls with 175,000 people. You can do this. And that's the biggest city in South Dakota. All right, next one, moving heads. Moving logos, we talked about that. Textures and patterns. And this cost is your gobos, because obviously you've already made that investment for your monograms. Here is your cost for gobos. You can go get custom gobos, or you can get stock gobos. Okay, outdoor lighting, we've done really well with that. Pin spotting, everybody good? Cool. I got all these really cool animations I got to spin through. I guess I should be doing that as I'm talking. All right, next one. Here we go. Here we go. There we go. Atmospheric effects. Now, haze and fog, I don't recommend using during weddings, but I do recommend using a geyser, or not a geyser. Don't use a geyser. Use a nimbus. The nimbus is a beautiful effect. You can see the cloud dance there. It's an amazing effect. And I think they've got those. I'm pretty sure they still have those in their booth. A really good special effect, and again, a really good return on investment. All right, next slide. Must-have accessories. Here's some things that I would recommend thinking about putting in your arsenal, such as color gels, clamps, because you can't do it without some of these tools. Clamps are important. Cases are important to keep your fixtures safe. Don't walk into a facility with the cardboard box that you bought the fixture in. Okay, get a bag, get a case, whatever it is. Look like a professional, because you are a professional. So make sure that that you're giving that that service to yourself. All right. So how do you sell this? There's a couple different ways. There is obviously photographers. So when I talked before about make sure that you're communicating with your photographer, if your photographer knows that you're working for them as well, they're more likely to recommend you. Same thing with a facility. okay? If you have some amazing pictures, send them to the facility so that way when they sit down with a couple that shows an amazing event that you did, they're gonna show this to the client and they're like, wow, who did that? Well, guess whose name's gonna come up? Theirs, because they do all their own uplighting now. I'm just kidding. No, it's important to share that love with some of the other professionals that you work with. And then also create a Pinterest board, and social media is obviously important as well. Everyone got it? All right, so exceeding the expectations. I talked about the photographer. Oh, this is actually it's a duplicate. All right, so whoops, let me go back, sorry. Okay, so final thoughts. To me, positioning is powerful. We talked about that, making sure that your uplights have purpose and not just the extension of the cord. Anything that you do beyond your performance is a distraction, just like Matt said. You don't have to worry about doing your lights now. You can focus on your DJing. Your DJing can now incorporate with your lighting. When I do my lighting, it's part of what I do as a performer. It's what I do as an entertainer. Entertainment Experience by Bill Herman. Again, very effective workshop if you're looking for a great workshop. A huge thanks to the CHAUVET family for allowing me to speak for them. And then also Electro Voice, if you didn't notice, these are the new Evolve 50s. You'll be able to see those in their booth. They are phenomenal. I've actually, again, Shop Time videos, go check them out. They're a great unit, and they do some phenomenal things. But what I want to show you, one last thing is, in my Shop Time videos, people always ask, can you compare the hybrid to the 375? So here is the hybrid, and I didn't do any focusing or anything like that, but here's the hybrid 140 SR. That is the 375, which is 150 watt LED, okay? I'm gonna let you guys decide which one is brighter or which one's better. Me, I prefer, for what I do in my production, I prefer to use the 140 SRs. The reason being is because I appreciate the double gobo wheels. I appreciate the double prisms. I'm gonna show you exactly what that looks like. All right, so here is the 140s, okay? The cool thing I love about these is a hybrid. It is a spot, a wash, and a beam. All right, so there it is in beam mode. And if there's actually haze in this air, it would pierce that haze. It's beautiful. We use these a lot. But it also has a wash filter, okay? And the next part is the color wheel. Actually, let me turn off some of these side lights so we can focus on those. Turn that off, turn that off. Turn off ceiling wash. Turn off trios. All right, so here now you can see the color wheel. But the two things I really want to point out in this color wheel is the UV, and most importantly, is the warm. Okay, the warm white, when it comes to what we do in stage production or what we do in a lot of our events, our photographers want more of a warm white as opposed to a cool white. So the filter that they have in here for a color creates a nice warm white. All right, and then the next thing is you've got a double gobo wheel. I'm just using one. But it has dual prisms as well. So when you use the dual prisms, here's the one prism. This is the linear prism, okay? And then when you put the circular prism and you spin it the other way, you actually get a really cool wave effect, okay? So to me, that's why the 140 is a better option for myself. Like I said, the 375 is a very fast active LED. So if you're looking for more of a wedding style, it's a great option as well. There's really no complaints on either of those fixtures. So if you guys have questions on that, please, like I said, let me know. But other than that, I want to thank you guys so much for having me. I hope you guys got something out of this. I will be down in the booth to answer any questions. Anything that you have questions on, I'll be down there in probably a half hour. I'll be happy to help you guys out. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.